this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson here with our house DJ Tolliver, who, by the way, Tolliver, in addition to your role here at The Middle, you are also a funk musician, and you actually have a song that is perfect for what we're talking about tonight, which is Money.
I sure do. Actually, all my songs are about food and money and cats. It's like the holy trinity for me. Yes. This is actually one of my newer songs. This is Bouillabaisse.
Baby, I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to get paid. I'm trying to eat lobster. This is Bouillabaisse.
That sounds pretty good.
It's relevant.
By the way, you can see Tolliver perform that live when we do the show from Connecticut Public Radio in June. But right now, what we want to know about is your relationship with money. Specifically, are you able to save for the future? That is our question this hour. Our number is 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. And we're going to get to your calls in a moment. But first, I just want to take a moment to talk about last week's show. We had Neil deGrasse Tyson on, and people really wanted to ask him questions, Tolliver.
Yeah, I learned more from our callers last week than like 18 years of school. Even the 12-year-olds are schooling me.
There was actually one person that even wrote in with a question about electromagnetism and said that her friend wanted her to ask it since he was in the emergency room with his wife.
Oh, my God.
So we hope that his wife is okay. But listen to some of these voicemails.
Hi, y'all. My name's Haley Urbano. I'm calling out of Detroit, Michigan. I'm a really big fan. Love you, Mr. Tyson. You're so slay. I was wondering if you could speak on quantum mechanics and perception, and possibly if you could elaborate on how we each experience time differently.
This is Ty, and I'm calling from Salt Lake City. And my general question was, there's been theories that if the Earth suddenly stopped, it would be like slamming on the car's brakes going Mach speed. My question is, what would happen if the world came to a gradual, slow stop?
Two questions. If whales are mammals and whales need the same air system we do to breathe, are whales always treading water? Number two is, if gravity curves space, but space is a function of gravity, which came first? That's Joe Citizen. On the other hand, do whales cause gravity?
You can take those.
Yeah, I'll answer those questions after the show. Thanks so much to everyone who calls in. And in case you missed it, Neil deGrasse Tyson answered even more questions for our podcast extra. So you can subscribe to the Middle with Jeremy Hobson podcast on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, let's get to this hour. We're talking about saving money for the future. As you know, coming out of the COVID pandemic, prices of many things are higher than they used to be. Groceries, for example, are up about 25% from before the pandemic. That means, of course, less money is able to go into savings. The savings rate in the United States is about 3.5% right now. That's about half of what it was before the pandemic. So what's been your experience? Are you able to save for the future, whether that's retirement or something nearer term? Tolliver, how can people reach us?
It's 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. or you can email us at listentothemiddle.com.
And now let's meet our panel from Tucson, Arizona. David Stein, creator of Money for the Rest of Us, which is also a podcast and a book. David, welcome to the Middle.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And we're also joined from Sacramento by Katie Gatti Tassin, founder of the Money with Katie blog and podcast, a personal finance brand. Katie, welcome to the Middle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, and before we get to the phones, David, does that 3.5% savings rate concern you right now? Are we in a particularly spend now, save later moment in this country?
No, not necessarily. I mean, this personal savings rate's been lower in the past. It tends to vary. Households were flush with cash coming out of the pandemic just because of the government grants that were given or the money that was sent. So unfortunately, that money that was sent is also what's contributed to the inflation. So just the amount of money in the economy has increased 40% since the beginning of the pandemic. So if you got that much more cash around and people buying stuff, that demand can push up prices, particularly if there's some constraints in terms of the ability to produce things.
And as prices are higher, people are able to save less.
Well, absolutely. You're right. So if you look at food prices are up, just the cost of rent is up tremendously. And so particularly lower incomes, it is more challenging to save than it has been. And that savings rate's going down as people have basically eaten into the savings they were able to sort of pull together during the pandemic.
And Katie, you talk to young people about this. What do you say to people who say they can't save right now because life is too expensive? Exactly what David's been talking about. And when you're talking about young people, you also could add in student loans.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I think that there's something two-pronged happening here, particularly for young people, especially when you look at not just the inflation rate over time and that savings rate, but also when you consider real wages for this young group, this cohort that I'm a part of. I guess I would classify it as like those that are now roughly 29 to 35, who I guess in 2020 go back by 3 years or 4 years now. We've actually seen our real wages go up by, I think, 12% beyond the rate of inflation. And that sounds kind of shocking, but when you consider that this cohort is moving up in their career and earning more, we do have that tailwind helping us, that many of us are actually on average earning more than we were in the pandemic in that phase in our career. The downside, and I think the headwind that we face beyond even the student loan aspect of things, is that our generation is kind of the first one that has gotten it from all sides when it comes to the culture of consumerism. There's never been more temptation in front of us at all times. And so if you even just pull up the screen time metric on your phone and you see, 4 hours, 5 hours, you are being hyper targeted by ads. Right? They're not just television ads that are playing for everyone. These are ads that are algorithmically programmed to tap into your innermost desires, and they are very good at it. So there are very real factors that are making it harder to save. I think there are also things that are within our control as well.
And none of those ads are telling you to take your money and put it into a savings account or a CD or something like that.
No, they're saying buy now, pay later.
Although maybe they will now that they just heard me say that, and then now you're going to get targeted.
Both of us. Yeah.
David, what is the difference between somebody who starts saving at 20 years old versus someone who waits until they're, say, 35?
Well, that 15-year gap potentially leads to a lot less money, just the compounding effect over time. And particularly in an environment right now where we can earn 5% on our savings. And so there are many individuals that are sort of got used to very, very low interest rates and just have kept money in their checking account. They look at what the checking account's paying, oftentimes very, very low. And so some simple steps to just increase our savings is to move it to a money market mutual fund or a higher yield savings account so that we can at least get the 5% that can be had without taking any risk. And so that's an important thing that people can, just to start saving, see where your little maybe emergency fund is right now and move it to something that's yielding higher, and that can get that compounding started.
And we want to hear from you, by the way, whether you are young, middle-aged, older. Are you saving? Are you able to save? Is that a priority for you? You can reach us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. And let's go to the phones and Jane, who is in Moorhead, Minnesota. Jane, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Hi. So I talked about that I am a teacher and my husband is a psychologist. We're 53 years old. And we've been very fortunate in that we come from families that don't have a lot, but also valued both education and savings. And so we, even when we started every job that we've ever started, we make sure that we have at least 10% coming out of our paychecks directly into savings or retirement before we even see that first paycheck. And we don't look at that. We don't consider it as money because it's not ours yet. It's retirement funds. So that I think has helped. The other thing that really helped is that we work really hard to live below our means. And like even both of our houses, when we bought our house, we look for a house that, okay, the bank says we can afford this amount,
right?
But we go, okay, what can we actually afford on one of our salaries instead of both of them?
Yeah. So you're frugal. You're frugal, Jane.
We are, but we still, I treat myself to coffee once in a while, and
Coffee, good, yes. Well, that can be very expensive these days. Jane, let me take your comments to our guests. And Katie, one of the things that Jane brings up there, which I want to talk about, is if you grew up and you didn't have a lot of money, it definitely influences how you behave as an adult.
Oh, 100%. I mean, how could it not? I think the majority, I would say, of our money stories come from what we observed as kids and the way that our parents talked about it too. Even if the financial situation that our family was in was actually maybe not that abnormal, even the language that is used in your home to describe money, if it's like, oh, we can't afford that versus, oh, we're choosing not to prioritize that. All of that influences the way that we come to think about it as adults. And I think that that's why it's really important to reflect on those types of narratives that you may have inherited, no pun intended, that aren't all that helpful to you anymore, or that you might want to rewrite for yourself.
It's also interesting that Jane was talking about spending below her means. Not everybody does that, David.
Right.
Well, no. And one of the things Jane has done, which I think is smart, is they've automated the savings. And so there are sort of hacks that we can use in terms of there's apps out there that'll automatically move a portion of your paycheck directly into savings. So as Jane said, she doesn't even see it. And so, and you get used to living on an amount that doesn't include the savings. It's much harder to save afterwards.
Tolliver, when it comes to the importance of saving money, we hear time and time again, it is better to start as early as possible.
Yeah, that's right, Jeremy. That's why they're even giving savings advice on Sesame Street. This is Elmo, my favorite.
Want to know something you can do with your money? Well, put it in 3 different jars. One for saving, one for spending, and one for sharing. We're saving money and having fun too.
Good note from Elmo there. I think Elmo's first appearance on The Middle, actually.
Not the last.
Not the last. By the way, if you are enjoying The Middle, go and rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Tell everybody how much you like the show. That would be great. And we'll be right back with more of The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. have both been assassinated. In Black America, was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife.
Boom, boom. This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking you, are you saving for your future, your retirement, education, or even just setting aside money for a rainy day? Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on social media.
I am joined by David Stein, creator of Money for the Rest of Us, which is also a book and a podcast, and Katie Gatti Tassin, who is founder of Money with Katie. And before we get back to the phones, I want to ask you each about the issue of Social Security. When a lot of people think about their savings, they think, well, I'm going to have Social Security, or maybe they think, well, I'm not going to have Social Security. David, do you advise people to rely on Social Security being there for them?
No, absolutely. It would be political suicide for the government to cut off Social Security. To even people approaching retirement. Now, maybe if you're in your 20s, it's not going to be your primary measure of living in retirement, but this is money that will be there. The government can create the money to pay Social Security. The latest trust fund report, they say that the Social Security will be funded completely out of basically what's in that trust fund through 2034. And afterwards, there's enough to cover 80% of the benefits. So the Congress can come together with the president to close that gap. It can be modified over time. Social Security will be there, and it's an important component of our retirement savings, but not the only aspect, which is why we're saving, so that we can complement Social Security.
Katie, what about you? Do you tell young people, millennials, Gen Z, that they should expect Social Security to be there for them? Or do you tell them, they're probably going to raise the age at some point? It might not be there when you're in your 60s?
Well, what's funny is I very much agree, but it's kind of a both for me. It's that, yes, I would be very surprised. Obviously, no one has a crystal ball, but I would be shocked if it went away for the same reasons that we just talked about, which is that it would be incredibly politically unpopular to do something like that. And also, we don't know what that funding is going to look like when those of us that are in our 20s and 30s now are ready to take it. And the chances that the age will continue to be, raised, there's a pretty good shot that that's going to happen because that's what's happened in the past. And so there are cool calculators that you can use. I believe it's ssa.gov that you can go in and estimate what your benefit will be. But it is certainly not, I will say, a comfortable retirement supporting amount in most cases. And so I think it's best to consider it a supplement that will probably be there, but it's not something that I would ever advise someone to rely on in its entirety.
Well, and even now, David, there are stories of people who are in their, what would be their retirement, who only have Social Security and maybe a little bit extra or nothing else, and are having to just work into their 70s because they need the money beyond what Social Security can provide.
No, oh, absolutely. We have a family friend that her Social Security covered her rent more than enough, but they're in Phoenix. Well, their rent's up 40%. And so it's a real struggle if you're dependent on Social Security. Well, that keeps pace with inflation. Everything else is going up. And so it's a travesty, really, but we have to make it through somehow.
Let me see if I can go to Anne, who's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Anne, welcome to the middle. What about you? Are you saving?
Thank you. No, I am not saving. I am in my 50s. I have no savings. I'm not able to pay my most basic monthly bills on time, so there's nothing left over for savings.
How did you get into that situation?
Well, the cost of living is just more than what I can earn. I used to work at a job that paid me more than what I needed. I would say between 2015 and 2017, I was doing well. I could live below my means. I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I would have a couple of $100 left over from each paycheck, and life was easy. I switched jobs, and my pay remained about the same. However, the cost of living went up.
Right.
And my child went to college where I did have to pay tuition, and that stretched me beyond my means. I didn't anticipate that the bills would be that expensive for the college, and I actually ended up homeless due to that.
Wow. And now you are housed.
I am housed only because my child graduated college and now has a full-time income so that she can contribute. If she were completely relying upon me, we would be homeless because now the rents are even more expensive, and I'm unable to find employment at the same level of pay that I had 2 years ago.
Well, Anne, thank you for calling in. And Katie, one of the things that Anne brings up there is the fact that she's now relying on her child to help her out. This is probably something we're going to see a lot more of, is the younger generation having to subsidize their parents later in life.
Yeah. And you know what, Anne, that story really breaks my heart. I have to tell you, it breaks my heart that in one of the wealthiest nations on earth that anybody is in that position. It's really, really, well, like David said, it's a travesty. And I do think that what is scariest about it for me in my work is that how common it is, how many people are in Anne's position, how many people are a part of the low wage workforce, or the workforce wherein their wages are not covering a very basic cost of living. I think the last estimate I saw is between 22 and 25% of American workers fall into that bucket. That's not an insignificant portion of the economy. So it is really in some cases quite impossible. And I do think that we're going to continue to see, and I hear from young people all the time who will reach out to me and say, hey, that's great. Love that you're helping me plan for my retirement. What do I do about my mom and dad? Because they're in their 60s and they don't really have much saved. So like, what should I do for them? And it's a really unfortunate and difficult question to answer, because part of the answer is, well, do you have a time machine? Can we go back in time and start saving for them? Because beyond that, you have to really start looking for creative solutions and intergenerational living and things of that nature.
Well, and David, what is the solution? Is the solution something that an individual can do, or is the solution something that the government needs to be doing differently to make it so that you don't have a person like Anne who didn't save and is in such a troubling situation?
Well, right. There's a couple of things that the government can do. One, Anne invested in her child's human capital. So by investing in education, I mean, it's okay that your child is helping you now one of the main things that's going on in the economy over the last 15 years, really since the great financial crisis, is there's just not enough housing. And so there's about a $3 million shortfall in terms of housing units in the U.S. And so if there's not enough housing, that flows through the entire economy. It pushes up the rents. And so government action to make it easier to build housing, such as accessory dwelling units, more density, as well as expanding the housing voucher program for low-income individuals. There's a huge waiting list for people trying to just be able to get some subsidy for their housing. And so those two elements, the supply of housing needs to be increased, but also in that interim, provide the ability for people to afford the housing that is available.
Let's go to Lillian, who's in St. Louis. Lillian, welcome to The Middle. What about you? Are you saving?
Hi. Yes, I am actually.
Tell us more.
Nice.
So I actually have much more saved now than I did a couple years ago because I got some really wonderful advice from my sister-in-law who, I asked her, how did she become more well off? And she said, with every paycheck, she puts a little in savings. And, I have some debts, and I was always worried, well, how do I pay my debts? Like, I can't save anything. I need to pay my debts. And she's like, pay a little to your debt, pay a little to savings.
Yeah.
Every paycheck, just put a little away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have like 3 times as much as I had a couple years ago because of that.
That is great. How old are
and
you,
I'm much
Lillian,
more
by the way?
comfortable. I'm 30.
30. Great. Well, thank you so much for calling in. Katie, Lillian mentions debt. I will say that one of the first lessons I learned about credit cards is the best way to play that game is never ever carry a balance on your credit card. You can use it all you want, just don't carry a balance on your credit card because the amount that you're going to pay on that debt is going to be a lot. But your response to Katie there, or to Lillian?
Yes. Well, I love that what I love about that story is that she asked somebody for good financial advice and then she took it and she executed it, which is the harder part of the equation to then, it doesn't sound like it would be that revelatory, right? Like, oh, you just need to save money. It's like, oh, but okay, take a little from each paycheck, right? Even having those little finer points to put in place of, well, yes, you're going to keep paying the debt. You're going to keep putting some toward the debt, but you're also going to be setting some aside for yourself. And then taking action is amazing. And to your point about the credit card debt. Yeah. What's interesting is when I first started working and all my friends and I were in our first year post-grad and everyone's getting credit cards for the first time, you really wouldn't believe the amount of conversations that happened in that group that were like, okay, so do I need to pay the minimum balance or the statement balance, or do I need to pay the full balance? Like, these things can be a little confusing if you've never interacted with that language before, with those systems before. And so I think a lot of people see the minimum balance and they assume that, okay, I'll pay that number. That's the smallest number. Why not? But you always want to make sure you're paying the statement balance in full. And if you're comfortable with automating that, doing auto pay, that's far and away the best way to avoid getting into that hole. Because once you're in it, it's pretty hard to dig back out.
True. Yeah. We actually got some folks commenting on social media related to this topic. Caitlin in Flint, Michigan says, in short, no. How can I worry about the future when I'm barely making it through today? I'll probably end up working my entire life. Marty in Jacksonville, Florida says, am I saving? Oh my gosh, what is that? What is that, brother? No, seriously. In this economy, everything is going up and it's causing me to tap into my savings. Granted, I'm a functioning adult with a 401k and all that other stuff, but everything is going up except for what you make. So you just have to make it work. Wow. Send us some more comments and listen to the middle.
ListenToTheMiddle.com. Let's go to Eric, who's in Burnsville, Minnesota. Eric, welcome to The Middle. What about you? Go ahead.
Hey, thanks. My wife and I are able to save each paycheck. We're able to go on vacation, but have some questions about what we should be doing to save for our kids. We have an elementary schooler and a preschooler, and looking at what college could cost in 10 and 14 years from now. And, we've heard some comments about 529 plans and that they're the best, and other people saying that they're not the best, and just kind of wondering what is the best idea for someone living in the middle right now who's able to save and kind of live a comfortable lifestyle, but want to make sure that their kids are set up right for college if possible.
Great question, Eric. David, I'll go to you on that.
Well, yes, you should say for college. Each state has their own 529 plan. One of the things you want to look at in terms of the plans that are available, what are the fees? What are the options? I think it's helpful to save, perhaps use a 529 plan, but that not be the only way. Because your child might not want to go to college. And we're looking at 15 years, the world could be very different. And so having the habit of savings, for example, our children, we never did use a 529 plan, but we saved and helped with college in other ways. And so it doesn't have to be the only way is through a 529 plan. There are some benefits, but it can be complemented with other taxable savings.
And Katie, I know that you talk about the fact that one of the ways you were able to save a lot of money quickly is that you did not have student debt.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That was a huge leg up that at the time I did not really understand. I ended up going to a state school that I could get a scholarship to. And my parents covered the room and board portion while I was there. And the whole time I was there, they kept emphasizing to me, you have no idea how lucky you are. The fact that you're not going to graduate with student debt, you have no idea. You have no idea. Well, I had no appreciation of money at all at that point. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Okay. It's a pretty big deal. And it wasn't until I got out into the real world and, started doing this work that I realized how uncommon that is. So I also would say, don't overlook the possibility that, to David's point, yes, the world may be very different. There are also amazing scholarships, grant programs. Some schools will give full tuition scholarships just for getting a certain ACT score. So there might be like an investment in upfront classes for something like a standardized test that could end up paying dividends if it leads to a full scholarship. And I also just want to add that as amazing as it is to save for your kids' college, I want to underscore the importance of making sure that your retirement obligations are being fulfilled first, because there are student loans for education and there aren't student loans for retirement. So it sounds like they're saving, which is amazing, but some people selflessly will want to save for college before they have taken care of their own retirement needs and have made sure that that is squared away.
You're saying put your own mask on first before helping others, basically.
Perfect metaphor.
There you go.
Yep.
Let's sneak in one more call before we have to take a quick break. Nellie is in Houston, Texas. Nellie, welcome to the middle. Tell us your story about saving.
Hi. So I'm 30 years old. I work for a large retailer as a buyer, or I guess in the procurement team. And I am saving, but I feel like it's harder and harder, honestly, to save nowadays just because of the cost of living. I lived for the past 5 years in Austin, and as you guys know, Austin just boomed like crazy. Yeah. And every year when I would renew my lease, it would just go up like an extra $200, $300. I mean, I was sharing a 3-bedroom house, and each of us were paying $1,200, for rent, and in a 500 square foot house. And so I moved to Houston, and that's helped a little bit, but I get scared that the same thing will happen where it's things are just going to get more expensive. So it's a fear that I constantly have. It's just life is just getting way more expensive, which is making it harder to prioritize where my money is supposed to go.
Nellie, thank you so much for that call. And I will say that, either the middle's average age of listener is around 30 or people who are around 30 are most worried about saving right now, which could also be true. But Tolliver, I do want to go to a 93-year-old next and hear from billionaire Warren Buffett.
Yeah, actually, did you know that by the time he was 14, Buffett had saved enough money from his paper route to buy a 40-acre farm?
Wow.
Did you know that?
I didn't know
Thank you, Google. And today he's worth $138 billion. Wow. Here he is in 2008 talking about saving money.
There are plenty of people that I don't advise to save. If you're struggling along and making a reasonable income and you have a job with a 401k being put aside for you and you have Social Security, who's to say whether it's better to defer $1 of expenditure on your family on a trip to Disneyland or something that they'll get enormous enjoyment out of, so that when you're 75 you can have a 30-foot boat instead of a 20-foot boat.
I don't have any boats.
Neither do I.
Dang
Although
it.
I will say the best thing to do is have a friend with a boat. Then they can deal with all the issues and you just join them on the boat.
Wise.
Right.
Wow, that's smart.
More of your calls about saving coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. We're asking you this hour, are you able to save for your future? Call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. We're joined by Katie Gatti Tassin, who's the founder of the Money with Katie blog and podcast, and David Stein, creator of Money for the Rest of Us, which is also a podcast and a book. And before we get back to the phones, let me just ask you, David, we're having all these debates in this country about the national debt, and people compare it to personal debt. Of course, they're very different. But what does it say to you about our society that, unlike many other cultures, we really don't, as Americans, feel the need to save that much? Is that about confidence? Is that stupid? Like, what do you think?
You mean like individuals or
individuals
or
and as a country? I mean, we're not a saving country.
Well, as a federal government, it's impossible for them to save. That means they're running a surplus, which means they're taking money from households. And that's not the role of a federal government. The federal government typically runs a deficit. So putting that aside, yes, individuals need to save. But I like the Warren Buffett quote in the sense that he's saying, we did an episode on this on our podcast a few years ago, we have permission to spend.
Yeah.
Some people that's all they think about is savings. They're trying to optimize their personal finances and save, and they feel guilty spending it all. And so there's an appropriate balance between saving and spending. We have to just do some self-reflection. So where are we on that spectrum? Are we ignoring the entire conversation about saving, or are we so focused on it we don't ever treat ourselves? And that was sort of what Buffett was getting at. Granted, most of us will not have a yacht to choose from in terms of how long the way. Yeah, but he made a good point.
$138 billion he has. Let's go to Fred, who's in Chicago. Fred, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. So I try to save whenever I can. It's really tough now because the properties are so high. But a couple of years ago, you could get in on real estate at a much lower price.
Yeah.
And I usually use that as a piggy bank. I know that the value really doesn't change, but at least with inflation, the property itself will kind of protect the value of the money you put into it. So that's, I know it's tough, and it was tough for me to start doing that, but I found that to be a good way to save.
That's a great question. Great point, Fred, because I want to get to that because that is really interesting. Katie, what about real estate as a savings vehicle? Do you recommend that for people?
Well, it's certainly one way that you can build wealth, particularly if you are thinking about it as an investment. You're buying a property and you're renting it out to other people, like that caller from Austin who was like, my rent keeps going up. You're on the other side of that transaction. So I guess it's up to you if you want to be that person to somebody else who's making it maybe harder for them.
And also, if you have a fixed mortgage, then and the inflation, goes, you have higher inflation, that fixed mortgage is going to stay the exact same for 30 years or whatever.
Well, yes and no. I think it is a bit of a misconception that that a house is a really great mechanism for saving. And I only say that for, two reasons. There are other costs that are going to change over time. Many people are experiencing this right now as tax assessed values are going up. Your property taxes are going to go up. It's also likely that your insurance rates are going to change as the value of your property rises. And as anyone who's ever owned a home knows, things break and things have to be replaced. And so often when we're looking at the value of our home rising over time, we're not really factoring in, but that HVAC system we had to replace, and there was a time the fridge went out, we had to replace that. These are things that as a renter, you're typically not on the hook for. So it's important to factor those into your, long-term thinking for sure.
Let's go to Javier, who's in Atlanta, Georgia. Javier, welcome to The Middle.
Hey, happy to be on.
Great to have you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was saying was I'm in Atlanta. I'm a public defender here in Fulton County. We have a really generous retirement savings account. I think they kick in, about 8% once everything is said and done for every 4 or 5 that we kick in. So I feel really good about that. Our salaries are some of the best in the country. But I definitely still have some of those anxieties about saving for the future. So I'm covered in that regard. But in terms of any additional savings that I have on my own, I haven't really explored those options. And then, I'm 30, I'm cohabitating with a partner who, we're looking at potentially getting married soon, but she's on different financial footing that I am. She's not she's not earning enough to save at all at this point, so I'm thinking, and she, her parents aren't in a great position either. So, we're in a position where I'm thinking about the future and thinking about, how much is she going to be able to save, or is everything going to be on me as we think about home ownership and futures and everything of that nature?
Yeah, I was wondering, as you think about saving for the future, is it about being able to buy a home? Is it about something else? It's about retirement. What are you saving for?
It's really all of the above. Retirement is definitely the number one, I would say. But, as somebody who's kind of dealt with what some of these other callers are talking about in terms of rent constantly going up in a major city, home ownership would absolutely be part of the equation.
Javier, thank you for that. David, Javier has a public sector job, which means that he's got a retirement plan that's different than a lot of people do in this country, where they're really tied into the market and with a 401k if they've got that.
Well, sure. And that's one of the things that's changed over the past 3 decades, where your typical job used to have a defined benefit pension plan where there was professional money management, there was a board overseeing that plan, and then corporations realize, hey, it's a lot less expensive if we put that risk on our employees. And that's where the 401k plan came, to where suddenly as individuals, that money's portable, but we're taking on the risk and trying to figure out. And that has really, and I don't think we've seen the long-term impact of that. You're just starting to see baby boomers retired, where most of their savings was through their 401k, and they're realizing, hey, even $200,000 or $300,000, if you're only can spend 4% of that a year, that's $12,000. That's hard to live on. And so if you have a pension, be very, very grateful. And the rest of us will sort of, you have to navigate learning some basics of investing, because that is our responsibility. I mentioned the high yield savings accounts are available. We've talked about compounding, investing early. Those are the things we have to take time to learn.
Just quickly, if people are listening to this and they're wondering, well, how much should I have saved when I retire? Is there a hard and fast rule that you give out, David?
Well, the first thing one should do is figure out how much they're spending. Like, what does it take to live? And then you can take that amount, back out Social Security, and then divide it by 4%. And because typically a typical person will spend 4% of their retirement nest egg. And so once you back out, if you get a pension, once Social Security, how much do I need? If that's $30,000 additional you need, you divide that by 4%. And if my math right, that's $1.2 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. And that's why it's such a daunting problem.
Yeah. Let's go to Joanne, who's in Lincoln, Nebraska. Hi, Joanne. Welcome to The Middle.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your situation with saving?
So my husband and I are not saving. We have 4 kids, and I grew up super poor, like Section 8 projects, homeless shelters. So definitely never had those conversations in my house because we didn't have money for food, let alone to save. But because we have 4 kids, we want to make sure that their childhoods are enjoyable. Like Warren Buffett was saying, like, I am less concerned about having a boat at all than my kids being able to have summer vacations and play sports, which are expensive, or do theater or whatever they want to do, and be able to go to college, than I am about our retirement.
Katie, what do you think about that? What do you say to Joanne?
Well, I think Joanne sounds like a mom who loves her family a lot and is really embracing the fact that she wants her kids to have a better experience of childhood than she did, which I think is really, really admirable. The only thing that I would kind of call back to is that earlier conversation that we had with the previous caller who said, I don't have any savings and now I'm relying on my kids because I don't have a retirement fund. So I think that this is about kind of care for them.
It sounded like that wasn't great for her.
Are you expecting, though,
for that
Joanne?
It sounded like it wasn't great, but I got 4 kids. Like, there's a good chance that one of them will make good money, right?
I don't know Joanne was still there.
Probably true.
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, like, in an indirect way, you saving for your retirement is also caring for them as well, because it's then something that they are not going to have to feel as though they are going to have to support that for you. And, but I think that it's great that you're trying to make sure that they have a better experience than you did.
Tolliver, we've got another message coming in online.
Yeah, Luna, a teacher in Florida, says, I have a master's degree and over a decade of working experience. My salary is about $55K a year. Both my husband and I work, and we don't have childcare payments. However, we're not able to save more than $300 a month. No 401K. With this inflation, the majority of our expenses are for food bought in a supermarket. I know plenty of teachers going to food banks because our salary doesn't cover the living expenses. Our 14-year-old is going to high school next year. College, if and only if he gets a full ride. Otherwise, he's doing an apprenticeship and getting a blue-collar job.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people focused on the rising cost of food and also, of course, housing, which has come up a number of times already. Let's go to Olivia, who is in New Orleans. Olivia, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I am 29 years old. So yeah, I guess people in my age gap are worried about saving. I have started to be able to save, but I don't think that I'm doing it in a responsible way that is growing. I just have it in a savings account attached to my checking through a small credit union. And I'm trying to figure out how to put it into a place where it would grow, but I work so many jobs in order to be able to save this money that I feel worn out by the time I sit down and try and navigate this new space for myself.
Well, let's ask David. David, what do you say to Olivia there? What should she be doing?
Well, first off, see what interest rate you're earning it should be on your statement how much you're earning, and presumably it's very, very low. And so as savers, one of the things we need to learn how to do is open up a brokerage account, an account at Vanguard or Fidelity or Schwab. You can call them up, you can do it online. And once you're there, there are savings vehicles there. You can invest in what's known as a money market mutual fund, which is a very safe investment that's primarily invested in very short-term government bonds, and you can earn 5%. So figure out, in today's environment where rates are where they are, just that simple step. I helped my niece the other day with this. She had a little bit of money. We walked through, how do you open an account at Vanguard? How do you purchase a money market mutual fund? And those are basic steps we can take. So you could then, once you see, and she called up a week or two later, it's like, I did it. Like I was able to do that. And she's around 30. She hasn't saved much in her life. And so we can learn to open a brokerage account, purchase one investment, one money market mutual fund, and that sort of starts that education path.
Thank you so much for that, David, and thank you for that call, Olivia. I remember the first time I opened up a brokerage account, and I invested, I think maybe $200 in GE, and just let it sit there forever until the company just sort of like got smaller and smaller and smaller. That was not a very good investment at that time, but it was safe. It was definitely safe. Let's go to Portia, who's in Groton, Connecticut. Portia, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me. I am in my mid-40s, and I was driving home. I'm an elected official from a budget meeting. Talk about the pressure with the rising cost in my community and having to help set those numbers. I am a 6-year breast cancer survivor, stage 3. I was a single mom at the time, in my 30s, late 30s. I had a high deductible plan, and I had to wipe out my savings to live, to literally fight for my life. And I think the concern was at 38, 39, I had a high deductible plan. I was healthy, no medications, no concerns. And now I'm trying to catch up. I have a son who opted to join the military and serve in the submarine force, which I'm very proud of. So that did not put the pressure of college expenses. I have my next son that's graduating this year, and he has applied to 12 schools, accepted to 12, and planning to pursue engineering. I don't expect to rely on him. I do own my own home, and I am working towards paying that off in 20 years versus 30 to have that equity and things like that. So I'm just looking at other ways to rebuild after a huge hit medically. It's a great problem to have, you know, worrying about your kids' college expense, and I'm just thankful to be here. But the cost was so huge that most people in their late 30s don't have to think about.
And that's something that many people, you know, a medical expense and a medical experience can certainly be a game changer. Katie, I'll go to you there for a thought on that.
Well, you know, the healthcare system in the U.S. is a real treat, and the high deductible plan that she referenced, it typically comes with something called an HSA plan that you can opt to contribute to. You can make pre-tax contributions. So they're kind of saying, hey, we know that it stinks that our, you know, healthcare system is for profit, but here's a consolation prize. You can contribute to this pre-tax plan and we'll give you a tax break. Saving in an HSA plan, if you have a high deductible health plan, is a good way to put some money aside, get the tax break. And so if you do end up having to go out of pocket to pay that high deductible, you end up meeting the deductible and then exceeding it in some cases with, you know, the level of care you need. That account can be there for you to serve as a bit of a buffer. But the other thing I'd mention on medical debt that I just feel like I have to say is that much of it is negotiable. Now, is that really what you want to be spending your time doing when you're battling stage 3 breast cancer? No, it's a shame that we're in a system that requires that of us. And it's disgusting, in my opinion. But medical bills are something that there are a lot of ways that you can push back with billing departments. You can fight and get medical bills lowered. We do a lot of content about how to do that. And there are a lot of really great, you know, people out there that are doing good work around that. So always, when you get a medical bill, know that that's a suggestion and you should push back.
We are out of time, but David, I actually just want to ask you just briefly, or are you surprised at how many 30-year-olds called in talking about savings?
No. As a 30-year-old, I can perfectly relate that's an important.
We're all 30.
We're all 30
on the middle.
We're all 30.
Everybody's 30 on the middle.
I think everyone's worried about savings, and definitely, I think once you get, we have, when our oldest son is around 30, and you kind of get to that age where you realize, hey, I'm an adult now.
I got to start
thinking about adults this. Do? They save, and then they start thinking about it.
David Stein, host of the Money for the Rest of Us podcast and author of a book by the same name, and Katie Gatti Tassin, founder of the Money with Katie blog and podcast. Thanks to both of you for joining us on The Middle.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And Tolliver, what do we have on tap for next week's show?
We'll be talking about a different kind of green on the show, Jeremy.
Oh.
We'll be asking, is cannabis legalization working? You can call us at 844-464-3353 or write in at listentothemiddle.com. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter. Come on.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Neck Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Joanne Jennings, Harrison Patino, John Barth, and Danny Alexander. Our technical director is Jason Croft. Our theme music was composed by Andrew Haig. Thanks also to Nashville Public Radio, iHeartMedia, and the more than 400 public radio stations that are making it possible for people across the country, many of them 30 years old, to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'll talk to you next week.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.